I declare Fall Convocation 2022 is now open. I invite you to stand and to sing your Master of the Eye, which is a centennial hymn for Illiff Theology, written by one of our faculty members at the time, Tom Trover, with a tune as a gift from the class of 2021 and Seth O'Hagan Gibson, one of the members of that class. Let's sing. We gather today committed to justice for all peoples through our various callings. We gather today aware of the presence of all the Iliffians who have gathered over 129 years in this very room. We gather today aware of the presence of the Cheyenne and Arapaho and Ute peoples on whose land we are living. We gather today reminding ourselves of both joyous and troubling legacies we have inherited. We remember that we do not engage those legacies alone, and we are glad for the willingness of Lenape elders to walk with us as we engage one of our most troubling legacies. Inheritance. This is the way that we seek justice as Iliffians, remembering and learning together for the sake of the life we share with all who dwell on this planet together. May we attend well to this present moment.
Good afternoon, Iliffians. Welcome. Welcome to this new academic year. Welcome to 22-23 good academic year. Especially welcome our new students. And welcome back our returning students, many of you not been in this campus until this week. We are so glad you are here and we are together here. Staff colleagues, thank you first. You have worked very hard for months to make this week possible. Especially Dr. Kelsey, thank you. I cannot possibly ask for better colleagues to work with, and your extraordinary work helped us to get to this point. My dearest faculty colleagues, our teachers, our instructors, welcome back. This opening of the new academic year will not be possible without you. All of you have been deeply engaged beyond your normal responsibilities in working with our students, and all of you extended your services beyond your teaching and research. Thank you for being the colleagues I and our students and our colleagues, their colleagues, want to work with. Dear board members, thank you for your tireless work to keep Iliff healthy in every possible sense. Your hard and extraordinary work is noted by many of us in the community, and we start this new academic year with immense gratitude to your advocacy work for all of us here, particularly protecting this great institution's academic freedom. There are several members who joined this great community since the honors convocation held in April of this year, which is last academic year. So I want to call their names, and you can stand, and so the community knows you are here. Ruben Figueroa, who is a usually experienced librarian. Maybe he's busy working downstairs. Anthony Chico, Director of Facilities. Dr. Jamie Myers, Academic Advising Center, Academic Advisor and Writing Center Director. Felix De La Rosa, IT Support Associate. Also, I want to welcome back Dr. Catherine Turpin from her year-long sabbatical. Thank you. She also George Hasby, the faculty director of the Office of Professional Formation and assistant professor of leadership and formation, who is on the research leave this quarter. On this opening convocation day, I also want to invite all of us to have a little moment of silence. Last week, many of us received a very shocking news that our beloved colleague, former colleague Katie Fisher, suddenly died on September 29th at age 70. Those of you who did not meet wonderful Katie, who was like our pastoral counselor who was standing under reference library, sign at the library. She joined Iliff in 1977, and she served this institution as a librarian and counselor, friend, and also, as she often says, she is the top of all the news about the school. So whenever people ask, she would point reference library right under me, above me. So Katie passed away after experiencing sudden illness. And tomorrow, her family and friends will remember her in the afternoon. So for her great service for the last 40 years and plus, we want to have a moment of silence, remembering her great life and service to this institution. Thank you, and welcome back.
Good evening, colleagues. It's so delightful to be here at this moment and to be in this physical space with everyone. And I have the honor and privilege to really get to share a little bit more about the new cohort that we've brought in this fall. Many of you have had an opportunity to meet with our new students and have break bread, have classes with them, but here are a few additional facts that you may not know. What I want to say to the new class is, first and foremost, not only am I thankful that you're here, it's that the fact that you're joining the Iliff community during a time that our world has really never seen. It's a time when knowledge of a global virus is continuing to be understood, and yet its impact on our physical, mental, spiritual, and economic health on the world is having ramifications that none of us could have ever expected. And so thank you for your courage. This is a time when denominations are splitting across issues of diversity, equity, and belonging based on one's sexual and gender identity. A time when people no longer see churches and houses of worship as safe havens. Yet at the same time, we are seeing the need to adapt, innovate, and create spaces where all people can feel welcome, a true sense of belonging, where they can be their full and whole selves. And so with that said, as leaders of tomorrow, you have big jobs to do. But beyond that, you're bringing a diverse foundation of education and experience to refine and reimagine change, true change. Many of you are already existing chaplains, medical professionals, retirees, community organizers, entrepreneurs, business owners, youth ministers, priests, and podcast producers as well. This fall's incoming cohort comes from a diverse array of geography. They represent 18 states that are beyond our normal borders of coast to coast. We have students as far as Hawaii and Florida, as close as Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico, and states beyond. They also bring a multitude of spiritual diversity and perspective, whether that be the United Methodist tradition, Buddhist, Baptist, Episcopal, non-denominational, post-denominational, Disciples of Christ, Unitarian, Universalist, United Church of Christ, and of course, I mentioned United Methodist. And you're also breaking boundaries in terms of how you are showing up in the world and sitting comfortably in your own identity. While many of us in enrollment track the diversity of our student body, I just want to say that many of our students bring diverse visual and internal diversity, and we thank you for bringing that experience, and please bring that experience while you're here at Iliff, and please share that with your community. Further along, not too many folks surprised, Most of our incoming students are dedicating their lives to becoming ordained ministers or chaplains, but others are looking at providing support in the nonprofit realm or government realm. Many are also planning to pursue a doctoral study, or some are just expanding their personal knowledge and their own transformation. To end my update or welcome to the new class, I'm going to try something a little differently. Most of you know when I speak, it's usually rattling off numbers and data, but instead I'm going to speak to you in the words of our current students. And I've borrowed a few snippets, I hope you don't mind, from your personal essays to talk about, to compile the reasons that this particular group of students have chosen to pursue their graduate theological education at Iliff this year, and what change in the world looks like to them. So I begin with, Iliff's vision is progressive, inclusive, and ahead of its time in terms of equipping a diverse body of students. This forward way of thinking is exactly what I wish to incorporate into my ministry endeavors. Creative imagination looks like change and innovation that expands compassion and justice. In each chapter of my life, I want to collaborate across sectors and societal divisions to transform systems for more just and equitable outcomes that prioritize human dignity and the care of the Earth's creation. As I served in books, including the ones by Iliff faculty members Dr. Miguel de la Torre and Anthony Alumcal, and discussed theories of atonement and sloppy, simplified, in quotes, metaphysics with friends over a beer, I also poured myself more fully into the life of the church. I joined the choir and found some questions of faith only come into focus once you sing them. Iliff's diversity goal is like no other. I see myself concentrating on the social justice and ethics as well as social change in biblical studies, while increasing personal understanding. I feel called to be a spiritual leader who exists beyond borders and walls. I would like to be able to deepen my understanding of theological aspects to bring more wholeness and inclusivity to the world through creative mediums like filmmaking, photography, podcasts, by telling stories that are relatable and capable of progressing humanity. And finally, this is the first time that I can remember that I'm not worried about how this will turn out, or that I'm not trying to fit into a specific box of my choosing. And I think this is a very good thing. So with this said, new students, I welcome you once again, and I am pleased to formally introduce you to President Reverend Dr. Thomas Wolf and the entire Iliff community. Thank you.
Good evening, Iliff. My name is Angela Malloy, and it's my honor to serve as your Student Senate Secretary. On behalf of the Iliff Student Senate, welcome to the 2022-2023 academic year. We are thrilled to represent your voice and your dreams for our innovative community. Friends, as we gather together from across the country, many seeing each other for the first time in person and very surprised at how much taller than you are. We honor you and the story that you are walking in this impossible season. We honor the confusion, the excitement, the grief, the joy, the fear, and the laughter. We honor cherished traditions and new beginnings. Whether this is your first quarter at Iliff or your last, we wish you the best of luck and encourage you to reach out if there is anything that we can do to improve your experience or to strengthen your bond with our community. Dear ones, you are never alone, even when it feels like it. You are necessary, you are beloved, and we are so thankful to be on this journey with you.
Good evening, everyone. Let me me just add my welcome to all of you, and I'll do that in more detail at the beginning of my formal remarks. But it is good to see all of you. It really is. And it is also my privilege to make this presentation of the Faculty of the Year celebration. The annual celebration is a new tradition. It's a recognition of faculty members, is given to up to 3 Iliff faculty members each year. The process includes nomination by faculty colleagues and self-nomination. Nominations and selections will be guided by the 3 broad areas of faculty work and service to the school: scholarship, teaching, and service. But will also be primarily guided by and focused on the nominees' contributions to supporting or advancing the school's current purpose and vision statement. And we know that statement, but let's hear it again. Iliff is a graduate school that cultivates compassion and justice with courageous imagination. Iliffians are activists, servant leaders, innovators in diverse religious, secular, and academic communities. That's who you are. Nominations will be reviewed by an ad hoc committee comprised of the following positions: the Faculty Personnel Committee Chair, the Faculty Dean, Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, the Vice President of Innovation, Learning, and Institutional Research, an Academic Advisor from the Advising Center, the Vice President of Institutional Advancement, and the Human Resources Director. This year's recipient is Dr. Miguel de la Torre, and he is being given this by his colleagues in the area of scholarship. So let me say these words. Miguel cannot be with us today, and I did see him earlier this morning before he left he has a major speaking engagement this evening, and he was on his way to it as he was bringing his most recent book. And so I said, I'm sitting here writing some nice things about you right now. He said he'll look at the tape later. So Miguel, this is for you. Below are the publications of Dr. de la Torre. And as you can note, he is quite prolific. He would want us to call attention, and so I do, to his noted work on Jose Marti, Liberative Political Theology, which is a scholarly research project based on a $30,000 grant from the Louisville Institute, and his other new recent book, Decolonizing Christianity, Becoming Badass Believers. He's got a word with titles, he's got a way with titles. Is more popular and has gotten him multiple podcast interviews, over 24, to discuss its content. Several other publications were geared to international audiences. For example, the book Resisting Occupation was co-edited with a Palestinian scholar, and the chapters are written by scholars from 6 continents. The book chapter, The Colonial Oppressiveness of Biblical Concept, Hospitality, is part of a project of the World Mission Council, which brought together global scholars to discuss the colonial venture. Finally, the scholarly article is Ecumenism Even Possible in the Context of World Christianity? Is based on a presentation given during a World Council of Churches conference. All to say, Dr. de la Torre's scholarship has progressed this year from the national discourse to the international conversation. Iliff can see the impact of his scholarship as more international students are applying to the joint PhD program to study with him. In fact, over half of the PhD students coming to Iliff has listed him as the reason they chose Iliff. He has several other edited books and book chapters and articles. He is just widely known and deeply appreciated. While this nomination was for scholarship, it is important to note that Dr. de la Torre was the recipient of 2 major awards. The Martin E. Marty Award for the Public Understanding of Religion. This award goes to individuals whose work has a relevance and eloquence that speaks not just to scholars, but more broadly to the public as well. And on the same year, at the same AAR conference, he was awarded the American Academy of Religion Excellence in Teaching Award. This award honors outstanding teaching in the field. It recognizes the considerable shifts in higher education landscape in recent years and the effects these shifts have had on teaching and learning about religion. Much more to say, but let us take this moment and let us congratulate our professor, our colleague, our friend, Dr. Miguel de la Torre, for this recognition. He may just have heard that where he is without help. I am so glad to be with you here in this space today. Everyone in this space has had the moment of being introduced to it and declaring yourself as Iliffians. So we are Iliffians. And let us remember that forever. I've been thinking about this year. I've been thinking about this year a lot. I've been thinking about this year because we are coming from a time when we haven't seen each other. Pardon me, but I've introduced myself as if for the first time to several of you who have met me before 2 years ago, and that was a long time ago. We all have changed, including my memory. So thank you for your grace and your patience. But that's what this does to us, this distance from each other. It does this to us. So I've been thinking about this year and how much I have enjoyed meals and events and casual conversations in the hallway with all of you. It's no small obligatory thing for me, you know. I keep my door open when classes are out, and in the process, you'll find me at the front desk running into you as if by accident. You are the ones who make this place sing. And it's good to check in with you in person, standing on the same patch of carpet, some corner of a hallway, at a meal, or just between things. The past couple of years, we've heard it recited already today, the number of issues that have come to the worlds that we are in, and the worlds we anticipate being in. And this past couple of years can change them. So many broken systems, so many broken relationships, so much floundering, so much lack of willingness to find each other around critical differences across the globe. So many systems, so many relationships, and stress and with problems. So as we go into this year, I have a question for you. How goes it with your deconstruction? I'm glad you chuckled. You can ask that same question of me. This is not a specific thing to just theological education or moments in seminary. This is a lifelong journey. The good news is, no, the bad news is, no, the good news is, it's a lifelong journey. The bad news is it's a lifelong journey. But how goes it with your deconstruction? I was thinking about, this led me to think about an experience that I had in my own midler year seminary. I was in Berkeley, California seminary. And when I got to my middle year, I was beginning to feel the weight of the change that was expected of me and that I was being confronted with. The growth that I was being asked to embrace and the complex issues that I was being asked to sort through and find my way into. And it was beginning to really affect what I thought was kind of a low-grade depression of some sort. I heard that there was a retired couple that loved our seminary and loved the seminarians there and had a place near the coast, and they would give the key to people if they needed a moment of respite. So I sought the key. And one night after I left my church job down the peninsula, instead of turning right over the Bay Bridge, I went straight ahead across the Golden Gate Bridge onto Route 1 and drove on my way up to Point Reyes National Seashore, where this house was. I followed the directions. I got there in the dark of night. I found my way, got the key in the door in the dark, and opened the door and found all the curtains drawn, felt for light switches, put my food in the refrigerator, and fell unconscious on the bed, the first bed I could find in the first room. I slept hard in the night, and I woke up in the morning, and there was curtains drawn everywhere in the house. So I began to bring light to the house by opening the curtains one at a time. And there was Tomales Bay sitting out on the edge of the backyard, with water rushing into it, breaking on the beach and rushing out. And I thought, maybe I have found the place that I need. Maybe. I took some light breakfast and then headed out to the end of the post, to the point, which is 24 miles away from this house. I drove out all the way to the end until the road ended, and I got out and I walked farther out to the prominent point, which is the farthest western point in the contiguous United States. Some of you I know have been there. And I just sat there, and the sun was coming up from the east behind me, coming up across my back, warming my back. And there was a beautiful onshore breeze coming in from the west. And on that rare day, the Farallon Islands were fully present offshore, which is about 3 days a year you get to see them. That's how beautiful it was that day. As I began to just settle into the experience of sitting in this grand space, my own tradition began to speak words to me. And I began to think about what was going on in my life, in the context of where I was. But the words of the creation story began to emerge in me and form in me. And I didn't read it literally, I just remembered it from deep within me. And I remember looking out onto the horizon and looking all the way out into the ocean, and there was a sharp distinction between the water and the sky. And the words came to me that God separated the firmaments, the water from below and the water from above. It was clearly evident in crystal terms that day. I began to think about the size of the space that I'm in, how big it was, how enormous it was. And the more I thought about the size, the more I thought of how small I am. And then I began to think of the wildlife. I noticed the birds on the beach, and I imagined the fish in the sea, and I realized that the world is teeming with life. Sandpipers dashing around on the water, on the sand. Birds hovering over seagulls and other birds. Long-legged birds standing in the shallows waiting for a minnow. Teeming with life all around me. I looked at the vegetation I was sitting in and around. It was magnificent and lush. It was magnificent. And every time I thought of something more, I began to feel smaller and smaller and smaller. And that felt wonderfully good. And then I remembered the creation of the monsters of the deep. And it was that time of year when gray whales were migrating up the coast. And there they were. The bigger the view became, the smaller I felt. But I couldn't understand why that didn't disturb me. It actually felt wonderful. And as I began to continue to listen and let the experience happen to me and not try to script it and just receive it and not try to over-understand it, not try to overthink it, just to be in the presence of it and try to experience it as it came as a gift. This word came to me. You are held in regard. You are held in regard. As I witnessed the life all around me, in all kinds of forms and all kinds of sizes, I suddenly realized it's held in regard. So this little tiny speck of me is held in regard. And let's be really clear about something. I'm not talking about being indulged. I'm not talking about regard because it inflates, because I didn't feel inflated. I'm not talking about regard because it wasn't about being anointed. It's not about being anointed. It's not being indulged. It's simply held in regard as part of the totality of life in the cosmos. So it meant I could take my life seriously. I didn't have to forget that I knew something or was learning something about the world that I was seeking to enter into more fully. But it helped me understand something. That in the midst of my own formation, I found my spirits lifted without lifting the responsibility of claiming my formation off of me. As part of it, that formation is so critical, and being held in regard doesn't mean we have to take it away from us, the responsibility. It just means that we're loved in the process of becoming. We are loved in the process of becoming. So sometimes regard is a very profoundly personal experience, and sometimes it just shows up just in time. Years later, I was serving at another institution as the dean of a chapel in the center of the institution when the World Trade Center was attacked, and the day was September 11th, 2000. And it was, you all experienced it in some form or another. So you don't need to know how you don't need accounts of how people were feeling, but there was great need, and we needed to be there. So with the chancellor and other leaders of the institution, we planned that we would gather that day at 3 o'clock in the chapel. With the help of the public safety department, we packed the chapel to twice its capacity. We way extended the limits because we knew that was an exceptional day. And people needed to be together. We planned to have the chancellor speak some comforting words, the vice chancellor and the provost to speak words about how we're going to handle classes and just give some good information. I asked 3 of our chaplains to speak from their own tradition. I had the rabbi speak from the Torah. I had the Christian chaplain speak from a text that he felt was appropriate. And I asked the Muslim chaplain to read from the Quran. One of the things I was concerned about was in watching this and then crawl across the bottom was everything was about Islamic terrorists, like it's one word, like it's one concept, like it's fused together forever. And somehow I thought we need to separate those words. So when I asked the imam to read, I said, you choose the text. What will ever be comforting to your community? So the moment came when we all gathered, and all the readings were done, and when the imam stood up to read from the Quran, he stood there for a moment, looking at everybody, and then he began to chant the words of the Quran in Arabic. This was a traumatized community who'd been watching the news nonstop and took a break just to come here. And we're seeing Islamic terrorists across the bottoms of their screens, and then all of a sudden, here comes the imam speaking, chanting the words in Arabic. And you could feel a collective in the room. It was tangible. He finished the reading. He paused a moment and began to translate what he had just said in Arabic. It was all about love and peace. We ended the gathering. People drifted out into their days. I stepped off the platform and I was met by a woman who actually was my boss. A very thoughtful, deep, gracious human being. She came up to me and she said, "Thank you for this day." And every time she ended a sentence, I knew she wasn't done. So, one of those moments where you don't say anything back for a moment. Couldn't say anything back. I just knew there was more. She said, "Tom, I must confess. I saw the imam up there and I thought, what on earth is Tom doing inviting him? I didn't say anything because she wasn't done. Finally, she said, when I heard him speak in Arabic, frankly, it was jarring. I love people when they tell the truth, even if it's on themselves. But she wasn't done, so I hadn't said anything yet. She looked at me and she said, then he translated it in English. And I discovered that what it was that made it jarring was in me. I made it jarring. Sometimes regard just shows up. Because regard is the way we are seen in the cosmos because we are alive in it. Regard is under all of it. It comes out in our self-revelations. It comes out in a variety of ways. Sometimes we create a space for it, and there it is. Other times it shows itself despite us. And sometimes it appears as a reminder of something long forgotten. And sometimes it's like the first time all over again. Because regard just is. It is all around us. It is in this room. It is in every uncomfortable feeling you have ever had in any classroom, in any conversation where you feel confronted. When you feel confronted and you feel struggling, the regard is there inside because you are alive in the world, and that's what goes with us. That's what goes with us. Because regard just is. So I'd like Walt Whitman to bless this today. In his poem in the collection of Leaves of Grass, the poem entitled Beginning My Studies. I love this poem. Beginning my studies, the first step pleased me so much. The mere fact, consciousness. These forms, the power of motion. The least insect or animal. The senses, eyesight, love. The first step I saw awed me and pleased me so much. I have hardly gone and hardly wish to go any farther, but stop and loiter all the time to sing it in ecstatic songs. You are regarded. You are here in the deepest part of your being, and you are not alone. Because the beautiful thing about regard is that it can be shared. It's not some only mystical experience, but it is part of what we offer each other. As we challenge each other, as we grow with each other, as we are with each other, as we tell the truth about ourselves and tell the truth about each other, all of this surrounded by this deep regard that comes with life itself, in this great order universe. In this next year to come, with all that is yet to unfold, lessons. Feel the regard. It is yours as a gift.
Allow me to invite you to a spiritual practice, to take what you have heard and make a piece of it your own. Invite you to take silence that I will hold with you and choose to form the sentence that is what you will take from what you have just heard from my presence. You might choose to take that sentence to prayer. You might choose to take it just to your own heart. But let me invite you to choose what you will take forward from what you have heard. Amen. May it be so.
Good evening. It's so wonderful that you all decided to come and join us this evening after having had such a very long day of studies and getting to know one another. I know that some of you all have just now committed to the name of being an Iliffian for the first time. But for those of us who have been Iliffians for a longer period of time, I want you all to listen up as well. So it says right here that we're committing to our purpose. And for some of us, we're committing to the purpose, but some of us, we're recommitting to our purpose. And so I'd like for you to lift up your hearts, lift up your minds, and if you feel like it, because you've been sitting for a while, stand up and stretch. I'm going to read the purpose statement first as a part for you to just hear it, and then I'm going to ask you all to join me. Listen up. Iliff is a graduate school that cultivates compassion and justice through courageous imagination. Let's try to say it together. Iliff is a graduate school that cultivates compassion and justice through courageous imagination. Carol?
So, in the spirit of Vincent G. Harding, Dr. Harding, who was a part of this place and space, and the library will soon take shape in a new way to honor his legacy in life. But Dr. Harding loved singing. So I'm setting you up. Don't meditate, don't be contemplative. In other words, throw your head back and know that you are the agent of change. Amen, or shame, you see? So this is a tune. We are building up a new world set to Jacob's Ladder. And I serve as minister of music and worship in a place called Park Hill United Methodist Church. And that space is now, our lead pastor is Reverend Dr. Val Jackson, an Iliffian, Reverend Naaman. And what I'm saying in that space, we are now, the series that we are living into is going boldly where we have never gone before. And so she said, Daryl, what would you do with these verses? So the verses that you have that are new were inspired by her saying, go beyond where you have never gone before. And so Iliff is the place where we can imagine, see, engage, and be what you never imagined you could be. So remember, we are building up a new world today. We are building up a new world. We are building up a new world. We are building up a new world. Builders, Yes, Dr. Wolf.
Every time.
Every
time.
Good to be home.
We are welcoming you home.
Thank you.
Come home anytime. You ready for the benediction? And now may we go from this place mindful of how we are enriched by each other. That life is the ongoing celebration of the sharing of ourselves one to the other. To affirm again that love is the core of our beings and is expressed in a myriad of relationships and through meaningful work. That this is a gift not confined only to the span of physical life, but as essence, connects us in all situations and experiences. Mindful of all that we feel and know this day, whatever that may be, let us live in the power of that Spirit. Go, go, go in peace.
Convocation is ended. Yeah.
Say what, go and get into some good trouble.